Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Marcia Elchison, Leadership Coordinator for Interfaith Interconnect. Welcome to everyone to Interfaith Interconnect's March Religion Chat. Great to have you all here. As many of you know, Interfaith Interconnect holds its religion chats on the second Wednesday of most months. And we always welcome your suggestions for topics. So you can always email us at interfaith.interconnect@gmail.com, or on a Zoom, you can put any suggestions in the chat. You're welcome to do that. As is our custom, we'll begin the meeting with our mission statement, which is to enrich, inform, and educate ourselves and others about the great diversity of faiths and cultures in our valley. And we are grateful for every opportunity to continue building on the interfaith relationships we've developed since Interfaith Interconnect was founded in 2011. Today's topic, which is the third and final in a series, nearly all religions have a version of "thou shalt not kill." How does your religion or congregation As I mentioned in our previous two chats, our leadership committee actually planned this series back in September, recognizing at that time that it was an important topic to address. And it has become even more important over the last several months, as I think probably most people would agree. Our presenters today are Troy Witt, who will be our first speaker, from Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And our other speaker is Manish Singhvi, who is representing the Jain tradition. And he will come on to the call a little bit later, just probably right in time to begin the speaking turn. Each speaker has 25 minutes total to speak, and that includes any time that they want to allow for taking questions. We plan to break into small groups at 6 o'clock for anyone who wants to stay and participate in a small group. Just a few things. Please keep your microphone on mute unless you are called on to speak. And unmute, as I said, just when you're called on to ask a question or if you need to speak. And now, please help me welcome our first speaker, Troy Witt. As I said again, he's from Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
Thank you, Marcia. I always enjoy these things, and I had the opportunity to watch the previous two versions or the previous two discussions on this topic, and it was fascinating to me. Really extraordinarily interesting topic, and quite complex when you really think about it. Before I get into mine, although because of this group, I want to say a couple of things. I'm on an interfaith advisory board in the Tri-Valley area, and on May 2nd is the National Day of Prayer, and it is hosted at the Alameda County Fairgrounds in the amphitheater. In the past years, we've held it at about 10 a.m. This year, we're moving it to, I think it's 5:30 or 6. I'm going to have to, maybe I'll send something to you, Marcia, and you can send it out to everybody. But it would be great to get a large turnout there. Prayer is so important, and the diversity of religions is really impressive there, and to see how they approach prayer. So anyway, that's interesting. The other thing I'll tell you, and this isn't the reason why I was willing to talk about this. I'll talk if Marcia asks me to talk. But with the conflict in Israel, a little backstory. I spent almost 30 years of my career with Clorox, and back in the early part of 2000s, I was responsible for sales in our automotive division back when Clorox owned STP and Armor All. And a close friend of mine was the marketing guy, and he and I developed a very close relationship through that. He is Jewish, and he and his wife are Jewish, and at the time they had two very young children. He and his wife always wanted to move to Jerusalem, and about 15 years ago they did. Well, in the October 7th attack, their son is one of the people that was taken hostage, and they have not heard from him at all. They do have belief that he's alive, although they have no proof of life. But so I've been in touch with John. His name is John Poland. Some of you may have seen him and his wife Rachel. They were on Time magazine. But it's just, and I don't say that to take sides between the Jewish and Palestinian conflict. I think there's such a complex topic there, and I've been to the Holy Land twice with my wife, and the people are just beautiful. Both the Jewish people and the Palestinian people are just beautiful, and they treat you with such kindness. So that's just a very emotional thing for me, and to see my good friend go through such a tragedy with his son. So anyway, this topic really for me has to be broken into two different subjects. And I think most of the speakers that we've heard from have done the same thing, because there's the thou shalt not kill component. And that gets into a whole part of life that is interesting, because in our faith, we use the King James Version of the Bible because we believe it is the most accurately translated, probably not perfectly translated, but the most accurate in our view. And the verbiage in the Ten Commandments is thou shalt not kill. There are those who believe that the intent was to have been thou shalt not murder. And that raises an interesting question, because murder always has a connotation of intent to kill, whereas to kill could be accidental. It could be in the line of duty. It could, and so that becomes a very different, a very complex topic as well. And it really boils down to God knowing the intent of our heart, and whether we intended to kill or whether it was something accidental. And so we do believe that we should be supportive and patriotic to our country. And that's not just the United States of America, but any country, that people should support their government. And that sometimes leads to conflict and war, as we see, and we've seen throughout the history of time. It's often motivated by greed or some other kind of nefarious motivation, or people who are trying to stop a dictator or someone like Hitler from pushing forward their agenda. And so that leads to war and those sorts of things. And there's many causes. But I think in the act of war, as a soldier, or perhaps in the line of duty as a police officer or something else, if we are doing our duty as ordered by our superiors, and it's kill or be killed, or you have to win this conflict. Imagine if Germany had won World War II, the world would be a very different place now. So people had to kill to stop that from happening. But I think even in the act of performing your duty, God knows the intent of our heart. If a soldier or a police officer ever gets to the point that they somewhat enjoy the act of killing, I think God will hold them accountable for that. So that's the whole, that raises a whole topic of intent, and is it thou shalt not murder, thou shalt not kill? Well, in most texts that we see, it is thou shalt not kill, but I believe there is a big distinction between thou shalt not murder and thou shalt not kill. And murder is always intentional. From what I can't think of an example when murder isn't intentional, but killing could be intentional or could be accidental. It also gets into the importance and the sacred nature of life. Perhaps the most sacred thing we do as human beings is create lives through the act of procreation. And in that act, we partner with God in his creation of life. And in our faith, we believe that we lived with God before we came to this earth. He created us and we lived with him, and we were spirit children of God at that point. And we saw him and we knew him, and we could see that we wanted to be like him. And through our progression, he had a plan for our eternal happiness and our eternal salvation. And that plan required that we be born into this earth to receive a body. We believe that this life has really three purposes. One is to gain a body. through the act of birth and the creation in the womb. And that the body and spirit together form, the life. The body itself without the spirit is lifeless, and it is the spirit that gives the body life. And so we came to this earth to gain a body. The second reason is to develop faith in God. When we lived with him prior to this existence, prior to existence on earth, that wasn't faith. That was, we knew he was there, just like all of us know the person next to us is there. It's not a question of faith, it's knowledge. They are there. And so the same thing in the pre-existence, as we call it, we knew God was there. But when we come here, we believe there was, just to use kind of easily understood terms, we believe there was a bit of a veil drawn between us and the previous life. And we have little or no recollection. We have no recollection of the life before, but that we receive teachings through our religious study, our worship of, our participation in worship services and things of that nature. And that's another part, is to develop faith in God to the point that we will be obedient to his commandments, even when he's not in our presence. You think of a child and you're standing there over a kid and say, don't eat that piece of candy. As long as you're standing there, they're probably not going to grab the piece of candy. But when you walk away, they might. Bad analogy, but in being on this life, we no longer have a sure knowledge that God is there. But we have faith and we have evidence around us through many different forms and feelings and thoughts that God is in our lives. And so we develop faith in him. And if we can demonstrate that we are willing to live according to the things that he has commanded and the things that he desires for us, that will help us to grow and mature in our spiritual progression towards eternal life. The third reason was we believe that we must receive certain ordinances. Just as Jesus Christ was baptized in the River Jordan, that wasn't just a one-person thing. We believe that was an example to all of us and a necessary ordinance of the gospel of Jesus Christ, of the gospel, for all of us to enter into the kingdom of God, was baptism as the beginning ordinance, and then other ordinances along the way that might be unique to our faith. And then at the end of this life, we try to do our best to live according to what we believe is going to represent us the best on the judgment day. People talk about the judgment day. And we try to do what we can that will represent us the best, knowing that we are imperfect. We believe that Jesus Christ came to this earth and atoned for our sins, and he is the intermediary between the required justice of God, but the merciful God who wants us to be able to succeed in returning to his presence and continuing our eternal life forever through his plan of our happiness, through his plan of happiness, and plan of salvation. So while it is true, what we believe is that anyone born into this life will be resurrected. Christ overcame death, and here we have Easter in a couple of weeks, and we celebrate that resurrection of Jesus Christ. He was the first person resurrected, and the rest of us will be resurrected at some point after our death. And the resurrection is the reuniting of the body and the spirit. And the evidence of that is Christ appearing to his apostles on the road to Emmaus, and other appearances, and doubting Thomas, who didn't believe that it was really him, and then he invited him to feel the prints in his hands and thrust his hand into the wound on his side. So the point of all of that is, through the grace of Jesus Christ, we will be resurrected and we will live eternally forever after this life. Then the question comes, as the Bible talks about, there are 3 degrees of glory. We believe that those degrees of glory have to do with our faithfulness and our goodness, and overcoming our imperfections through repentance and calling upon the atonement of Jesus Christ to help us become, perfected in Jesus Christ and his atonement. So that's all of that. I tell you all of that because that is why we believe that life is so precious. That is why and I don't think anybody would argue that life is precious, but we believe it is precious beyond this existence, for the eternities, and that we have potential beyond this life to continue to grow and progress and receive blessings and to live in the state of happiness for eternity. Then you get back to this question of how do we deal with a conflict of war? Well, I've mentioned that we do believe in patriotism. We believe that we should be subject to kings and presidents and rulers, insofar as they are, not dictators that seek to destroy us. There's so many examples in history of governments and dictators who had cruel intention out of greed or superiority or something like that. And so there we have to perform our duty. And if we're called on to serve in military back when the draft existed, then we should do so. Nowadays, it's all a voluntary military force, as you know. But we believe that people should perform their duty and defend our country, defend democracy, defend freedom for people, defend liberty. And so that's really how we approach the concept of war. But the intent of our heart is really only known by God and by us individually. So when someone dies as a result of our actions, really God is the only one that knows if it was intentional, or we may know. And so that's the basic part of our beliefs in that. And I guess I would open up for questions now. I've got about 10 minutes left. Looking at my timer, I'd open up if there's any questions. Yeah, go ahead. I let me put my glasses on so I can see you. Is it Jim?
Yes. Would a Church of Latter-day Saints support a conscientious objector?
Yes, we would. There are people who, they know themselves. They know they could not carry a weapon and carry out the act of killing someone. And so, yeah, there's no condemnation in being a conscientious objector.
Thank you.
Yeah. And just, for years, I just wanted to say this. For years, we have been known as Mormons. And that is not an offensive term by any means, but it's really not our church. It's because we believe in the Book of Mormon, which is an additional body of scripture that is a complement to the Bible, that is another testament of Jesus Christ. It further testifies of the divinity of Jesus Christ, that he is the Son of God, that he is the way, the truth, and the life. And so we use that. And so back in the centuries, a couple centuries ago, we began to be known as Mormons. And only recently have we really started to kind of ask people to refer to us as we are, which is members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And the of Latter-day Saints is to distinguish between the saints of the days when Christ was on the earth, when we believe he was here and formed his church with apostles and he was the prophet, and he organized his church and his teachings. So those were the members of the Church of Jesus Christ. We weren't there. So the restored gospel that comes through the act of the restoration that we believe occurred in the early 1800s, we call ourselves the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. So just I know this is a group that likes to be educated and respectful, and it's fine if you call us Mormons. We just try to get it out there that we really are the Church of Jesus Christ. And that's in we believe that God reveals all things, and we believe that it was revealed to one of our prophets that we should be known as the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Yeah, Ruth, you're muted, but it's always great to see you.
So Ruth, you have to unmute yourself.
Yeah, if you're on a computer, hit the space bar and that might do it. There you go.
Okay, so you said that when you kill somebody, you know in your heart, and God knows. When there is a murder, the authorities get involved, the police get involved, the judge, and
Mhm.
where does that fit in to what you're talking about?
Yeah, well, I mean, man-made law compared to God's law is nothing. So when judges and juries have to determine if your act of killing was an intentional act or an irresponsible act, even though you may not have intended for someone who drives drunk probably never intended to kill someone, but it was a very irresponsible act that led to the death of someone. And so we respect those judgments, that come from the courts. But in the end, in the final analysis, when we stand before God, He will know what our intent was, and He will know whether it was an intent to murder or that we did a really dumb thing by drinking and driving and killing someone, and that will, that I don't want to speak for God by any means, but I imagine that would affect the judgment. But that we also believe in repentance, that through the atonement of Jesus Christ, all things can be forgiven. I don't know how that's, I can't imagine God filtering through all of that, but He has a way to do it. Does that answer your question, Ruth?
It does. It explains and makes it a lot clearer for me. Thank you.
Yeah, sure.
Any other questions for Troy?
I couldn't have been that thorough.
I guess I have a question if there's no one else right at the moment. When you use the word intentional, if you were defending your own life or someone else's life, it seems like, when someone is threatening you with a gun or,
Yeah, we believe in self-defense. We do believe in self-defense.
So in the sense that you might end up killing that person and in a sense intend to do it to prevent the person from harming you or killing your child or something like that. So if you say intentional, it's a
it's with ill intent, maybe is a better way to say it.
Okay.
Does that help?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, that's a good distinction though, Marcia. It's because there are times when someone might kill to defend someone else, and it was intentionally done, but it was the intent with malice, or was it with love and protection for the other person?
Yeah, that does help. Thank you.
And then, again, God will know the circumstances far better than us, and will judge us accordingly.
Thanks. Rena, looks like you have a question. Go ahead.
Yes, you mentioned the translation, and it's we refer to that law in the Bible as being the 10 Commandments. Is that the basis? Are the 10 Commandments sort of basic to your religion?
Yes, they are the foundational commandments. They're not the only commandments. Love thy neighbor as love thy neighbor is not one of the 10, but it is something we're commanded to do. And so, yes, the 10 commandments are the foundational commandments. And of course came about in the days of Moses, Mosaic law. But yeah, they are the foundation. Does that answer it, Rena? Does that get to what you wanted? Okay.
Hey, it looks like we should have time for one more question, and I see that our second speaker, Manish, has joined us. So we do have time for one more question if anyone has a question for Troy.
Okay, well, thank you. And I hope we see you on May 2nd at the Alameda County Fairgrounds in the amphitheater for the National Day of Prayer. The program lasts about an hour, maybe an hour and 10 or 15 minutes if it goes long. But it's really a beautiful thing to see people from various religions offer prayer.
Okay, thank you so much, Troy. And I will send, if you send me that information, I'll send it out through
I will do that.
Okay, that's great. Let's
All right.
everyone give a round of applause of thanks to Troy Witt. Thank you. Okay, Manish, welcome. You made
Sorry,
it.
I got late.
It's okay. You're just actually on perfect time to start your presentation if you can catch your breath. Is it okay if I make you a co-host?
Sure.
And then that makes it a little easier for, then you can easily share your PowerPoint.
Okay, give me 1 second. Let me start sharing that.
Yeah, okay, so let me co-host you, and then you can take over to share your presentation.
By any chance, do you know how to present in Zoom? Let's say screen share. Okay, got it, found it. Desktop. Is it desktop?
So if you screen share, if you have that on your desktop.
Second, yeah, it's just showing me basic, advanced.
Yes, like you were doing, ask a teenager.
I was asking my teenager because I am not a Mac guy or a Zoom guy. Okay. What if just say share? Is it going to share? Okay. Just say later. Okay, how does it? Oh boy. Oh, there it is. This one. Share. Perfect. Okay.
There we are. Okay. So let me back up just for a second. So Manish Singhvi is representing Jainism. Welcome to you, Manish. We're looking forward to hearing you talk. And you have a total of about 25 minutes. So you can speak as, through that time and allow however much time you'd like to allow for questions during that 25 minutes. Okay?
All right. Thank you so much.
And we're ready to go.
All right.
Can everybody see the screen, the shared screen? Yes, okay.
Perfect. All right. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to talk about Jainism, and specifically the topic is thou shalt not kill. Jainism. So this is my, I think, almost 6 months back, I had given a small talk on Jainism. What is Jainism? And in today's, I'm not going to go too much deep into Jainism, but Jainism is one of the world's oldest continuously practiced religion with roots stretching back to ancient India. At the heart of Jainism, there's a profound philosophy of non-violence that is also called ahimsa in Hindi or Sanskrit. And the belief is that every living being, small or big, doesn't matter, possesses an eternal soul capable of achieving liberation from the cycle of death. So in Jainism, we believe that there's a cycle, you die, you get rebirth, but there's a way you can get out of this cycle. If you follow certain process, very strict, only very few people in Jainism, they say there are 24, how do I relate? Pathfinders, they are called, who have been able to liberate themselves from the cycle of birth and death. And they have finally achieved something what is called as nirvana, meaning they are not going to be born again. Now, the key principles of Jainism is, number one is called ahimsa, which is non-violence. The second one is always speak the truth. This principle encourage truthfulness in speech and actions. The third principle is non-stealing. This basically emphasizes refraining from taking what is not rightfully earned or given. It encourages honesty and integrity in financial and personal dealings. The fourth principle is celibacy. It promotes celibacy for the monks that are in our religion, or a responsible sexual conduct for people who are not monks, who are married and who and lead a normal life. It also encourages control over sensual desires for spiritual advancement. The next quality or the key principle is non-possession or non-attachment. It basically encourages minimalism and detachment from material possessions. Followers are urged to overcome desires of worldly possession, like you don't need too many things in life. So that is what is that. The next principle that Jains live with is called non-absolutism. It acknowledges the complexity of truth and reality. It advocates considering multiple perspectives. So the religion does not say that what my religion says is right. There are multiple perspectives, and we welcome all perspectives so that we have a better understanding of this world. Another good thing is called repentance or forgiveness. So every day, knowing or unknowingly, we commit some sins, right? Like, I won't call it sins, but knowing or unknowingly, we will harm somebody, something, or even a smaller, even we may kill an ant. So this principle involves introspection and seeking forgiveness for any harm that is caused intentionally or unintentionally. And in the end, I'll give you a small mantra how to do that. It's very easy. Just before sleep, you do it. And it takes away all the sins that you had probably done during the whole day. And how do you achieve that? You achieve that by following the principle of right faith, which basically emphasizing having a right and rational belief in the principles of Jainism. It encourages a deep understanding and acceptance to the path, to the liberation. The ultimate goal is liberate. How can I get out of this cycle of birth and death? Right knowledge, that stresses the importance of acquiring correct knowledge to make informed.
We lost your voice, Manish.
It calls for basically ethical and moral behavior in
Oh, we can't hear you. We lost your audio.
Here are some of the reasons. It could be because of political causes, like there are territorial disputes. Disputes arise over borders, territory. There is power struggle that happens. People have political ambitions, desire for influence, struggle. Nations may seek to expand their influence regionally or globally. That happens. It could be because of economic factors. Nations are competing because of resources. Wars can be fueled by competing for resources like oil, water, mineral rights, right? Nations fight because of that, like, oh, I own this land, I own this oil. We have all seen that in last so many years. It could be because of economic inequality, because there's so much difference in wealth and resources between nations that it may lead to social unrest and political instability. It could be because of social or cultural causes also, right? There's different in ethnicity, religion. My religion is better than your religion. Everybody should follow my religion. These things happen, and because of that, wars happen. It could also be because of nationalism. There could be an extreme nationalism where the leader will promote the identity of the nation and try to go justify it and go for a war. It could also be because of the ideological and belief system, difference in political ideologies. It could be radicalism, extremism, and it could also be historical animosities, right? Conflicts that have been open for hundreds of years, right? And people may not want to put an end to it. So because of all of these, wars could happen. Now, how can practices in Jainism? Remember on the second slide, I had told you like 8 or 10 things that Jains practice basically that can help to avoid war and conflict. So these are some of the qualities or practices that I would say that our parents or our community shares with us on an everyday basis, like non-violence, right? We believe in non-violence. Jains do not even try to, like all Jains are vegetarian. They have never eaten meat, as an example, right? They don't even hurt animals. Even hurting a fly is considered, against Jainism. Showing compassion and equality is another thing. We promote compassion and equality for all living beings, irrespective of their species. It's not just with humans. It can be with humans, with animals, even in humans, race, religion does not matter. Non-attachment and materialism. So if we follow this practice of not possessing too much wealth or not attached to too much wealth, I think wars won't happen. Like imagine a leader saying, yeah, I'm okay with, if another country has more oil than my country, I'm okay with that, right? I don't have to attack them. Another thing is religious pluralism. We advocate religious tolerance and acceptance of diverse beliefs. That is one of the biggest things. We are okay with every religion. Everybody has a right to practice their own religion and follow it in a certain way. We do not want to impose Jainism on anybody. Then ethical conduct. We promote honesty, integrity, and ethical behavior in everything you do, day-to-day life. If there is a problem, always the preference is resolution through a dialogue rather than fighting. Let's talk, let's understand, let's find a peaceful mean to resolve it, right? We don't have to fight and kill each other. And let's also be very much cautious about the environment, right? We treat this whole earth as our mother, right? It is providing things to us. So it's for everybody, not just for me. So these are some of the things that practices in Jainism can help in avoiding war or conflict on a larger scale, or even in the family, or even in day-to-day life. All right. So this is one of the Jain symbol. It's a hand with a wheel on the palm, and in between there's a word called ahimsa written, which basically means non-violence. The wheel represents the chakra, like you are wandering around the world. And the whole goal is to get liberation from this wandering around. And the 24 spokes in the wheel represent the preaching from 24 pathfinders who have attained this nirvana and have liberated their soul. And they have been liberated from the cycle of reincarnation. Now, out of these 24, the last one is, his name was Mahavir Swami. He was the last pathfinder. And he said, give me 1 second. Let me move some windows on this side. Yes, thank you. All right. You can still see my screen, right? Okay. So he said, there's nothing so small and subtle as the atom, nor any element so vast as space. Similarly, there is no quality of soul more subtle than non-violence, and no virtue of spirit greater than reverence for life. So we should have a deep regard and deep respect for every life, not just human life, but every life. All right. And I was also able to find one of the old paintings or scriptures that depict that a lion and a cow are drinking from the same tub of water. We find this symbol in Jainism. And the whole goal is, it's called basically ahimsa parmo dharma. That means non-violence is the supreme religion. Forget, you have your own faith, own religion, great, but do not kill anything or anybody. That is the supreme religion. And live and let live is the motto. So, in detail, what does ahimsa means? Right? The teaching of ahimsa refers not only to wars and physical acts of violence, but also to the violence in heart and mind of human beings, right? The lack of concern, the lack of compassion for the fellow humans is also violence. We say, look, do not injure, abuse, oppress, enslave, insult, torment, torture, or kill any creature or living being. Do not do it intentionally or unintentionally. Do not even think about it. If you are even thinking about hurting somebody, that's also an act of violence. So without violent thoughts, there would be no violent actions. That's what the bottom line is, right? Imagine the leaders of the world that are fighting and putting so many people to war and killing happening. Imagine if they don't even think about violence or think about killing, then the wars will not happen. All right. Next. So how do Jains practice ahimsa or non-violence? One is, of course, vegetarianism. We follow a strict vegetarian diet. We avoid all forms of meat, fish, and eggs. We do careful food preparation. We try to ensure that there is minimum harm to insects. We try to follow gentle living, which is do not try to, for example, even if in my house there are ants, I try my best not to kill them and reroute them somehow without killing them. Respect for all lives. We believe in interconnectedness of all life forms. Mindfulness in daily activities. So try not to have bad thoughts, not to have violent thoughts in your speech and action. Be compassionate, be environment conscious, non-violence in thought and speech. Sorry, I repeated that. And pacifism. We try to adhere to philosophy of non-violence, even in the face of adversity, right? Even if you are in a position where you are pinned down, try to see if you can get away from that rather than killing somebody. So what do we say about war? The first thing is avoid if you can. Find a peaceful resolution, avoid harm. War should never be taken for personal or national glorification. Now, what happens if somebody comes and attacks you, right? So we are saying protect if you must, right? There is no other option, right? You should be defensive in most cases, and you should uphold the dharma, which is what is the right way to do the war, right? I'm like, we are seeing today that some country attacks another country, and that country is now on a war spree, killing and not stopping, right? So there is time when you should stop, do what is right. We also say everything is not fair in love and war. You have to be ethical, right? Don't kill people just to punish them forever, right? And last but not the least, remember karma. Every action that you do has a consequence, right? Like there's law of physics, right? Every action has equal and opposite reaction. Same way, every action that we are doing, we are going to be either rewarded or punished in this life or in next life. But the debit and credit at the end of the day, the Almighty will settle it all. So whatever you are doing, be careful, be compassionate. And that's what Jainism teaches, and that's what Jainism thinks about how to avoid war. And the last thing that I promised, this is the fastest and simplest way to seek forgiveness every day. There is a term called Michchami Dukhanam, which basically translates to, may all the evil that has been done by me become fruitless. So it's my way, or it's a Jain way, to ask for an apology and request for forgiveness from all living beings, including we may have knowingly or unknowingly harmed through our actions, thought, words, or deed. So what we do just before going to bed, we fold our hands and we just say it 1 to 9 times, Michami Dukhanam, and then I sleep peacefully. Like if I have done anything wrong this whole day, God will take it away. That's the Jain way of asking for forgiveness every night, and then your what do you call it? Balance is set to 0 again. All right, that's it for today. Any questions?
Let's see, let's unshare your screen.
Sure.
Okay. There we go. Okay. Okay, now we all can see each other on the grid, right? So does anyone have a question for Manish? Rena, I see your hand. Go ahead.
Have there been any studies about or any reference to how this is effective in these kinds of communities in any country in relation to crime? Because many of the things you talk about are even smaller crimes than
Yeah.
killing, and of course we all want to think that the people following a faith will not commit a crime. It just in general is, does this happen in the Jain community?
Right. So I cannot quote exactly any study right now because I do not have that data with me. But yeah, there have been instances. So a lot of religions, because Jain is a very ancient religion, a lot of religions in India, specifically Hinduism, has also been influenced by Jainism. There have been communities and instances or villages in India where nobody would lock their door, right? And there is no crime that is happening there. So again, I won't give credit to Jainism for this one, but do the right thing, do not steal. There are many communities in India that will follow that, and the crime rate would be much lesser there as compared to other parts of India.
Thank you. Pushpa, I see your hand up. Go ahead.
So, Manish, this is Pushpa, and I see a lot of similarities with what you are explaining and discussing to Buddhist philosophies,
Correct.
and also a lot of Indian philosophies, the Hindu philosophies. So there seems to be a coexistence of all of these thoughts at the same time, or maybe they followed each other.
So Buddhism evolved. So the Buddha was born, I believe, 46 years after Mahavir, which was the last Jain god.
Okay.
So a lot of Buddhism philosophy has been highly influenced by Jainism. It follows the same principle. Almost you will find the same kind of description of non-violence, don't be attached to anything in Buddhism. And the last Jain god, which is the 24th god, plus 46 years is when Buddha was there. So that's why there is so much similarity. And it is said that Buddhism was born out of Jainism only. That's why we see it.
Okay, all right. Well, this was very informative. Thank you.
Anyone else with a question? Jim, please unmute.
Would someone in Jainism be able to enlist in an army, or would they categorically be a conscientious objector to participating in a, here, like say in the United States, would people with Jainism be in the military?
Yes, Jains can be in military. There are examples of Jain that are in military. And again, the whole purpose, for example, if I go back, let's take an example of specifically India, right? India has never attacked any country in the world for more than 1,000 years. The philosophy here is that we can be in military because we need to make sure that we have enough self-defense. And one of the Jain principles is, yeah, if somebody attacks you, try to resolve it with dialogue first. But if you have to bear arms, then you have to bear arms. When you are done dealing with that person, deal with them in a compassionate way, meaning, of course, you need to push back, but don't go and over punish and keep on punishing them, right? Like we are seeing some examples in today's modern world where some wars are not even stopping. So yes, Jains can be and it is okay to protect yourself, even though we believe in non-violence, but do not be on the offensive side where you are attacking first or starting the war.
Okay, anyone else with a question? I don't see any other hands right now, so I'll go ahead and ask this. I was taken with your description about non-absolutism. And can you explain that a little bit with a little bit more detail?
All right, let me pull some notes here. Give me 1 second, please. All right. So specifically, non-absolutism, right? It advocates considering multiple perspectives to gain a more complete understanding, right? So again, going back, there are some religions in the world that will tell that my religion is the best religion. My God is the best God. There's no other God besides my God, right? In Jainism, we never say that. We welcome everybody's perspective. Now, not just for God, right? For everything you do, right? So it is like hearing multiple opinions and not saying that what I say is the best thing and is the only thing in the world. So that is like even in day-to-day meetings that we have with in our offices, right? There are some people who will come and say my way or highway. Like, hey, I'm saying it should be done like this, end of story. I don't want to hear anything, right? But a better way would be to hear everybody's perspective on how to do things, right? Don't come to a meeting or anything with a predefined notion of this is right and this is what I think should be done. Everybody's perspective should be heard and listened to, and then you can collectively, I'm not saying be democratic, like everything should be like, okay, how many of you vote for this one, and then we make a call. But there's a logic behind making that decision, right? And if your logic does not fit, or you figure out that you have a not so good logic, then there is no point in sticking to it and fighting for it just to prove that you are right. Right? Even in today's world where there are many religious conflicts going on, right? The whole thing is that my God is the best God, right? And this is my God's place and not your God's place, kind of a thing. So we can get away with that. We can all live peacefully, trust me, right? We just have to probably, adjust to certain things and be open-minded. So that is what basically is non-absolutism. So.
Okay, thank you. That was really helpful. Appreciate that. Okay, I'm looking at the time and it looks like it's about time for us to wrap up. So let's all give a round of applause to thank Manish for his great presentation, and
Thank
also
you.
thank Troy again. It was just a really interesting hour. I learned a lot. I hope everybody enjoyed it and found it informative. I have an announcement to make, and then we'll break into small groups for anyone who would like to participate in that. That's, of course, completely optional. So if you can stay on for just a minute, I'll tell you about our next religion chat. We have a new topic for our April and May chats. And we have speakers confirmed for both. And we haven't determined the venue for certain, but our hope is that we'll have those religion chats in person. So keep an eye on your email and you'll learn more information about that. And that was my announcement.
Marcia, what are the topics? What is the topic?
Okay, I knew you were going to ask me that, and I don't have the direct wording right in front.
I'm sorry.
But it's okay. I can find it pretty quick if you can give me a minute. I think I'll go ahead and turn the recording off so I don't forget to do that. Sometimes I forget and record the small groups, and then Alan has to clip the recording. So thank you again, everyone, for coming. I'll turn the recording off and I'll look that information up for you right now.